Members, good morning. We've formed a quorum and it's also the appointed time. May I call the meeting to order? Now, as you've already got the agenda, the first thing on the agenda is to discuss the way forward for the Bills Committee. As you all know, I've got a letter from the Deputy Chairman saying that it might be impossible for us to complete the scrutiny work, and we're asked to consider whether we should discontinue the scrutiny of the bill. So I issued a paper by circulation to members to ask for your views. Secretary, how many are for? 12 are for, but then 9 are against the proposal. Since we cannot come to a consensus, the first thing on the agenda this morning is the way forward for the Bills Committee. Well, in the course of our deliberation in the past couple of months in particular, we wanted to expedite our progress. We scheduled in a few extra meetings. Even when I was out of town, I instructed the Deputy Chairman to take the chair, and then we added 2 extra meetings, but we're unable to complete we can only go into the definition part. And this term is going to end quite soon, and we have to report to the House Committee. My opinion is we won't have enough time to complete the scrutiny, prepare a report to the House, and then for the bill to return to the Council. Since some members feel differently, I'd like to allow time for members to express their views before we come to a final decision as to the way forward. All right. I intend to spend about 40 minutes on this issue. All right, members, you're invited to express your opinion on this. Mr. Ted Hui, our Deputy Chairman, since he is the proposer of this item, to be followed by Mr. Hsu Ka-fai. All right. All right. So let's have 3 minutes each. So please be succinct. We'll each have 3 minutes. Mr. Steven HO, Deputy Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. So I propose a suggestion for the chairman to consider, because 2 bills in the council have already terminated its scrutiny. There are 1 or 2 bills relatively simple, waiting to be dealt with. We've only got very short time left in this term. As said by the chairman, the possibility of completing the bill is close to 0. And as for waste charging, waste disposal charging, I'm sure we all support this thing. And of course, the SL government is the first to blame if the bill cannot be completed. Because the bill was presented to the council a long time ago, but then views from members have not been incorporated in the bill, leading to such controversies. For instance, we want the administration to deal with the easy bit first, to provide more incentive for members of the public to reduce the generation of waste. However, this approach to impose a charge may not be the best approach. Last year we have the black-clad riots, and a few meetings were cancelled. And this year we also had COVID-19. Given the natural disasters and other things, is it really an opportune time to impose a charging scheme, given that the economy is suffering a downturn? Now, because the bill it's about environmental protection, so we may not want to reject such a noble idea. So my proposal is neutral. Whether we continue or discontinue, I think we should take into account all factors. Some may say that, well, because this is about environmental protection, we should persevere to the very end. And some may take this opportunity to politicize the event. And some may be very concerned about the subject. They may not run for the second time. And then even if they do, they may not get elected. And they may want to make their last chance, take this last chance to consider this waste bill. But I suggest that we make better use of our time so that the council can do something better to benefit the community. Mr. Tetoy. Mr. Steven Ho called this a waste bill. Well, perhaps he really considers it rubbish, but in fact, this is charging for municipal solid waste bill. He said that he is neutral. In fact, I've not heard anyone saying that we should stop the scrutiny of the bill. So the motion to vote on should not be about whether we should stop the scrutiny of the bill. Let's see who will come out to say very clearly that he wants to stop the scrutiny of the bill. Now, according to the Deputy Chairman, we won't have enough time to scrutinize the bill. How come? Now, we resumed the operation of the Bills Committee in April, and then there was only one meeting in that month, another one in May. And I queried how come we only scheduled monthly meetings, but there was no response. And so I sent a letter to the chairman. And so in June, there have been 3 meetings. So after 3 meetings, we have started clause-by-clause scrutiny of the bill, and we are close to the middle of the bill. So another 3 meetings, perhaps we'll see the end of the bill, and then the chairman of the Bills Committee has the responsibility to complete the clause-by-clause scrutiny ASAP. Now, we've seen controversial bills in the past, and usually the chairman would schedule more meetings to the extent of having a few meetings in a week. When we considered the National Anthem Bill, Mr. Martin Liu convened 3-4 meetings a week, and we also had Saturday meetings. How come for some bills we could have such frequent meetings, and Mr. Ma Fung-kwok, chairman here, is unwilling to do the same? All right, if you have heard all our comments, and if the motion is put to the vote, you have to explain to the public why you are unwilling to schedule in more meetings. Let's set aside the issues referred to by the pro-establishment camp about questions we ask. It is our duty to ask questions about the Bills Committee. However, have you done your part, Chairman? If not, you are derelict in your duty, and you have disappointed everyone who supports the bill, and I think you owe us an explanation. Next, Mr. Hsu Ka-fai. Thank you, Chairman. Today is the 22nd of June. I think this term will end sometime after 10th of July, and so we are less than a month away from the end of this session, or even this term. So, Chairman, you asked whether we agree to continue the discussion of the bill. Should we call a halt here, or should we proceed? Now, if we continue, and if we can come to a conclusion, I will have no disagreement. However, today is the 22nd of June, and this term will end on the 18th of July. Do you think it's possible for us to finish our job? But my experience tells us otherwise. That being the case, why should we continue to sit there and discuss whether we should continue? I'm sure all members have their own time arrangement. All right, as you said, 12 were for and 9 against. So you take a snapshot of members present in this room. It's already 9:13. 9:13? You said 12 or 4, but we have less than 12 members sitting in this room. For those who agreed to continue, they have to come back first. They cannot just put a tick and then do not turn up here. So they say yes, but the buck has passed other members. Well, even if I sit through meetings from day to night, we will not be able to complete the scrutiny of the bill. Aren't we wasting the time of the Council as well as the Secretariat? Well, the so-called waste charging bill has its merits because people will have to buy plastic bags and then they will squeeze the waste into the smallest volume, and then the volume of waste dumped into our landfills will be smaller, and then that will prolong the life of our landfills. In the long term, we should consider new technology, and of course, non-polluting ones are like incinerators. So we cannot have landfills forever. However, this is just a way to help with environmental protection. No one disagrees with the direction. However, the fact is we won't have enough time. All right, you take another snapshot. How many are present here in the room? Next, Mr. Tommy Zhang.
Chair, I'm really concerned about all those talk from members who just want to burn together. They're trying to occupy the moral high ground. I don't know how committed they are to the environmental protection. They talk about supporting environmental protection. I checked with them. Show me a handkerchief. Mr. Ted, do you have a handkerchief? You do have one? Here's the problem. Is this bill, once passed, going to help environmental protection? We talked about the levy. This will go through negative vetting, and then you can keep raising the charges. Is it going to contribute to environmental protection? Once you have a charge, that would be good for environmental protection, and if you don't, then that's bad for environmental protection. Is that really the case? There are so many problems with this bill. We have the legal advisor here. We put tons of questions to the advisor. But the legal advisor was at a loss. Answers it would provide were not helpful. We still have around 100 pages in the Blue Bill to go. Over the past 2 meetings, we worked hard. But, Chair, if we just don't look at the English version of it, we can only cover 1 page or 2 pages per meeting. We have members who just didn't raise questions. Just then, Mr. Peter Hsu was saying, last meeting, I was here, and I looked around, couldn't see other meetings until the deputy chairman came into the meeting room. We really have to see for this bill, is it about environmental protection or if the bill is really going to work. Everyone has to come here to scrutinize the bill. At Electrical here, we are not rubber stamp. Maybe some of those who are for the idea of burning together, they think we're just rubber stamp. They're just opposing everything the government proposes, and they think that's their job, and they're doing their job. At Electrical here, we have a job to do. We're here to legislate. We have to look at every fine detail of every bill. We have to make sure everything is up to scratch. I work hard at scrutinizing a bill. I wear another hat. I'm also a member of the Executive Council. I support this bill. But then I also have to look at the progress of this bill. We haven't even covered a part about the committee stage amendments. There's no way we can cover every single word in the Blue Bill. If we keep going on, then we're just wasting time. Next, Mr. Eddie Chu. Thank you, Chair. Once again, want to congratulate some members. Now, in addition to the bill on heat-not-burn cigarettes, now we're seeing another bill going down. For sure, I've taken part in filibustering. But for filibustering to work, the pro-establishment camp has done a spectacular job. They have the majority. If they want to drag down a bill so that it doesn't get to council meeting, they have many options. Looking back at this bill here, the bill was first tabled in 2018. It was doomed from the get-go. Was doomed. Here's the reason. The government made a decision on whether to present the bill to the Legislative Council without securing the support of every member in the loyalist camp. Back then, there was all the talk about environmental protection. There was some pros and cons, maybe some cons from the business sector. But it turned out that the government really showed a lack of understanding about the Legislative Council. They were expecting everyone in the pro-establishment or loyalist camp to just toe the line. And they were hoping that they could just blow the dog whistle. Towards the middle of the scrutiny, I knew we were just dragging things out over here. So what's the point of coming to the meetings? Just to see how people are doing the filibustering here. I'm not even bothering to get in the way of their filibustering. Chair. And there was all the preparation about this bill. Back in 2018, I supported the bill. But up to this day, I can see the government is losing the confidence of the people. Just look at the restriction of group gathering that has become a tool for cracking down on peaceful protests. Even when people are just singing, they get fined $2,000 per person. The government is undermining its own credibility. So that even when you're talking about a bill on environmental protection, let's leave aside the parts about livelihood difficulties. Even if we're just talking about environmental authorities, and they become tools for cracking down on political dissent. And that's where all the burning together idea comes from. A final reminder to Mr. Peter Shiu, Hong Kong is already building an incinerator. You have to be mindful of the fact. Any other members who would like to speak? A response. Mr. Eddie Chair, incinerators have always been around in Hong Kong. We have always had incinerators. Mr. Eddie Chu, can you let Mr. Peter Shiu speak? Let's get the facts straight. Can you let me finish? Chairman, can you let me finish? Let me just finish. I just want to finish my sentence. Just listen to the webcast if you want. I was saying there are new models of incinerators. Hong Kong has always had incinerators. Don't be just trying to take cheap shots at me in the final seconds. Just point out any inaccuracy in what I just said. Mr. Eddie Chu, briefly, I want to clarify. Hong Kong has incinerators for sludge or chemical waste, but that's dealing with a small amount of waste. Near Cheung Chau, Shek Wu Chau, there's an incinerator under construction to be dealing with around 3,000 tons of waste every day. We have agreed, this is something already agreed on. So going forward, incineration of waste would be a major part in dealing with waste. So that's in line with what Mr. Peter Shiu was saying. Next, Mr. Tony Tse. It's a thing about principles. For any bills, members are free to sign up for bills committees. I want to focus on this one. I try to take part in all the meetings. doesn't mean that we have to sit for the full length of the meetings. I may not be able to do that, but every time I put forward my views and raise questions, I've always had this position. Has always been a position. I attend the meetings as much as I can. I raise questions, orally or written. That has always been my practice. And for this Bills Committee, I support carrying on with the work, but then there are objective factors to consider. How many meetings can we get done by the 3rd of July? We don't know. Maybe the Secretariat has already been doing a lot of work trying to find a slot for additional meetings. There are 12 members who supported discontinuing the scrutiny here. 9 members are against. We're clear on that. We have 9 people against discontinuing the scrutiny. I'm one of them. I'm one of those against discontinuing the scrutiny here. If you can hold any more meetings, I will make it to the meeting. If there are other members who can make it to meetings, I hope they can attend those meetings instead of just talking. Now, for sure, I respect those who don't want to carry on with meetings any further. I know it doesn't look like we have enough time for every member to put forward their views or move amendments. This is my position, Chair. I support carrying on with the scrutiny. If you can find a slot for meeting, I will make it to it. Any other members? Here are my thoughts. In 2018, the government put forward this bill charging for waste. I think this is one way to deal with solid waste, and that's why I support this bill. Some members asked me to be the chairman of the Bills Committee. Despite my busy schedule, I was happy to serve as the chairman. Hope that we could do something about the waste problem in Hong Kong. But unfortunately, shortly after this Bills Committee was set up, we had the whole thing with the Fugitive Offenders Ordinance Amendment work. Then came the opposition to the FOO in the community. Then we had riots. That certainly had a major impact on our work. Moving on to 2020, as we were expecting things to resume normal, then came the novel coronavirus. The Legislative Council came to a halt for a significant period of time. When meetings were resumed, I tried to resume the scrutiny. I'm fully aware that there are many things that members here are concerned about across party lines. As a chairman here, I want to make as much time as available as possible for scrutiny. But there are difficulties. First, the Secretariat hasn't been in an easy position to secure slots for the meetings. And then for me and for the Deputy Chairman, we also have to make things work in our schedule. It's hard to slot in a meeting. We have so many bills in the Legical's backlog. Once business resumes normal at the Legical, it's not easy to find a way to make things work. So recently, I tried to expedite things, additional meetings, for example. I want to make things work. Not trying to blame any member. We know members put forward their views for a reason. We shouldn't be speculating the motives of members in putting forward their views. Just then, there were members talking about filibustering. Now, I don't think that's appropriate comment. I think we're trying to work together for the benefit of our community. Now that we're where we are, I know there are all kinds of reasons that their members are talking to me about whether we could discontinue the scrutiny early on. But I want to hold on and see how much ground we can cover. But looking at the progress we made over the past few meetings, I have come to accept the idea that based on where we are, it's highly unlikely that we can complete the scrutiny of the bill. Shortly after, I will invite the Secretariat to talk about this. If we go by the electrical procedure, what would the timeline be like? And as the Vice Chairman wrote to us, raising the possibility of discontinuing the scrutiny, I think this is something we should think about seriously. And that's why circulated papers, inviting views, and that's why I've included the way forward, as our agenda item today. Now I will let the clerk talk about the timeline on the way forward, and then we will move on. Ted, clerk. If the Bills Committee wants to resume the second reading for this bill, we have to do this by the council meeting on 15th of July, and by the 3rd of July, the Bills Committee will have to prepare a report to the House Committee. We will normally reserve some time for compiling the report, such as checking with the government and the legal advisor. There will also need to be time for translation. If we do additional meetings, I will try to work towards that, but we also have to depend on the schedule of the chairman. During additional meetings near the end of June, that's another possibility. But the possible time slots left, that's just a few of them left, and we still have other meetings at work, like the Finance Committee, for example. So it's really hard to slot in another meeting or meetings. After moving into the clause-by-clause scrutiny, looks like we still need quite a number of meeting sessions to complete the scrutiny. We spent 3 meetings, and we're still at clause 4. That's roughly where we are now.
All right, I'd like to control our time. I at first didn't intend to allow members to speak more than once. However, because Mr. Ted Hui has a lot to say about the progress of the meeting, so I'll give Mr. Hui another chance. Thank you very much for your kindness. Well, you have yet to tell me how come we haven't scheduled meetings on Saturdays and Sundays. All right. Do we have rooms available in the coming Sundays and Saturdays? Now, for the national bill, the national anthem bill, and the co-location arrangement bill, we had meetings at weekends. So now, if we spend all 8 hours on Saturday and Sunday, then that's already a dozen or so meetings. Is it that we won't be able to complete the remaining 10-odd clauses in 10 meetings? So, Secretary, have you considered the rooms on Saturdays and Sundays? Have all the rooms be taken up? And then the administration should be here as well, because the government is the government's duty as well. What is the government's position? Does it want us to complete the bill? Does it want extra meetings? Mr. Hui, let me tell you that all of us have our own expectations that want to be satisfied. All right. Who are members that refuse to meet from the business sector or people like Steven HO? Steven HO are going to attend meetings on Sundays and Saturdays. So I'm asking you how you won't schedule meetings at weekends. Mr. Hui, you have been a legislator for a few years. You should know our rules of procedure full well. All right, why don't you let the secretary tell us, can we meet at weekends? You should not interrupt when I'm speaking. Please Do not interrupt when I'm speaking, but my questions have not been answered. Now, if you continue to interrupt me, I will consider. All right, Secretary, please tell us whether rooms are available on Sundays and Saturdays. This is a formal warning to you, Mr. Ted Hui. You have to stop. No. You have to answer my question first. There is no need for you to stall. Why can't we meet in the coming Saturday and Sunday? Are rooms available? Is it you don't want to meet, or the pro-establishment camp doesn't want to meet? This is my second warning to you. You are showing the whole world that it is you who don't want to meet. Those who are getting more than $10,000 a month don't want to meet. All right, you have to stop now, Mr. Hui. I already said that please do not interrupt another member's speech. I wanted to answer your question. I've yet to finish, but you have interrupted a few times already. Can you now stop? Now, can you do that? We'll be able to stop talking? Security. All right, please don't speak again. Otherwise, I'm going to take action. Please switch off Mr. Ted Hui's microphone. All right. Let me say this once again. All of us have our own expectations, hoping that they can be fulfilled. For instance, some may want additional meetings. I think I expressed a number of times for several committees to have additional meetings, but that couldn't be done. So they are bound to be the case. As for whether extra meetings should be scheduled, that depends on a number of factors. As the chair, do I have the time? Even if we have room available, can I do it? If I can't, can the deputy chairman take the chair? If both of us are not available, that would be so difficult to have extra meetings. And of course, that would mean extra resources on the part of the Secretariat, but that will not be the main issue. Well, in the past, I have tried my very best to schedule in extra meetings. Of course, we do not only consider the availability of chairman, and also the deputy chairman will also consider that of other members. According to my observation, many members were not always present at meetings. Even recently, members from different political parties have questions with the bill, and it's not that the pro-establishment camp has monopolized the question time, so it is inappropriate to accuse members of filibustering. I hope that has sufficiently addressed your point. All right, time is running short. Mr. Jeremy Tam, how much time do I have? 3 minutes. Chair, other pandemics may not be as vociferous because they don't want to help the pro-establishment camp to filibuster. They don't want to comment on the punctuation. For instance, sometimes we went on like a talk show. You just allowed them all the time in the world. So there's a strange. When it comes to the bill on collocation arrangement, that was not the same approach. We were allowed only several minutes and a certain number of rounds in each meeting. And for the fugitive offenders bill, yes, we worked in full steam, hoping to get it passed. So this bill was introduced in 2018. If this is not filibustering, what is it? Now, pro-establishment members, you should not criticize anyone of filibustering because you have set a perfect example. This is not filibustering. Even though in front of the microphone or outside, you talked about filibustering, you could oppose. And for the franchise taxi bill, Mr. Shilka said at a public hearing that then I would do my very best to ensure that the bill will not be passed in this term. He said it openly. So for things the pro-establishment camp doesn't want to approve, you do your utmost to filibuster. Now, the chair. The chair is the host of a talk show. I think the host of a talk show could have better control of time than you. And then you just allowed them to go on and said, all right, time is up for this meeting. And if this is not filibustering, what is it? Sometimes pandems refrained from speaking here so that we don't want to join you in this filibustering. Now you talked about no room available, and what about Sunday? All right, let's not talk about the past. Let's be forward-looking. Your pet subject. You talked about stopping the violence, and you would tell us to set aside the past and talk about the future. All right. How about this Saturday and Sunday? Can we meet for 10 hours each day? Is that possible? Can that be done? Now, if you say that it is not possible, all right, so be it. Now, you said that if the chair is not here, the deputy chair is not here, what should we do? According to our rules of procedure, the most veteran member in this council can take the chair. It's not necessary that you must take the chair. Now, if you claim that you are busy, then if you're so busy, you shouldn't have offered to be the chairman. And if you can't make it, then another veteran member of the council can take the chair. We can find it all in the rules of procedure. I'll allow Mr. Shilkafa a very short response given that he was mentioned. All right, Mr. Jeremy Tam talked about my filibustering intention to filibuster in the franchised taxi bill. Now, there is live broadcast and the media also watching. I think for the point mentioned by Mr. Jeremy Tam, the media, can you please do some research? Otherwise, I'm worried. Because Mr. Jeremy Tam, people will doubt your credibility in the future. Mr. Posey. Now we're towards the end of the term, and I think we all want to complete our pet subjects. Now, this is not just about meeting. If we have meaningful discussions, of course, the government and the Secretariat should do their utmost to support. For any amendments, if we do not have enough time to think about them, then if we just rush through them, then may not be in the public interest. Ironically, Mr. Jeremy Tam said that he refrained from speaking so as not to waste time. Now, you know, when the opposition camp is filibustering, we'll try not to speak, and then we will be ridiculed as being too quiet. I think when it comes to filibustering, I think no one can beat Mr. Dennis Kwok, party member of Jeremy Tam. He spent 7 months filibustering in the House Committee. So now, I think we can have a focused filibustering when it comes to certain policy or certain bill. Now, for the heat not burn bill and also the special rates bill, well, I think filibustering is justified if we want a focused discussion on a certain point. But then when it comes to filibustering by the opposition camp, they do not really have any focus. They just want to abort a bill. They want to stop the administration. Now, this indiscriminate way of filibustering, like acting like Taliban, is not supported. Mr. Tam has been a member for 4 years. I think he should have sufficient wisdom to decide or to discern what filibustering is acceptable and what is not. Now, his party member Dennis Kwok gave us a classic example of indiscriminate filibustering, and I think the public know about it. All right, it's already the end of the time earmarked for this topic. The secretary has yet to tell me whether we have rooms available on Sunday and Saturday. and the administration has not yet come in. I think they should join this part of the meeting. We've invited the administration to come, but this is our house matter. Ask the administration to come if they're willing to meet with us and if members are available. Now, let me say from the start, I'm willing to sit for 8-10 hours at weekends. If you don't want to chair, I can take the chair. Now, it's not just about you. Well, this is just my suggestion. To call a meeting, we need various factors. All right, there's no need for the secretary to tell us whether we have rooms on Sunday and Saturday. Can you ask the administration to join us? I don't intend to do so. Oh, you have no intention, so you have all the say. What's your point? A point of order. Of course, we have to vote on whether we should discontinue the discussion of the bill. But the administration's thinking is important. And we should ask the administration's response to the result of our voting, so that if we know the government's position, that can help us to ponder. So we should invite the administration to join us so that we can consult them on this point before we vote on this proposal. Since you intend to put this item to the vote, and once there is majority support, the administration will return to their office. Anyway, you have already reserved 2 hours for this meeting anyway. Mr. Wong Kim Sing, Secretary for the Environment, said openly to the media a couple of days ago, expressing the government's position. May I remind you to consider his remarks, and I think the government has his position on this already. That's very clear. If need be, I can invite the Secretary to read out his statement.
Speaker is not speaking to microphone. What we're discussing here is something that this Bills Committee has to deal with, and this is not about the government's representatives. Speaker is not coming through. Mr. Editor, please just don't speak without being invited to. I have already responded to that point. The government's position is clear. I'm not going to hold additional meetings this week. I'm unavailable for additional meetings. If you check with others, they can do this. And I talked to the vice chairman about this. I don't think that's the appropriate thing to do. Or Clark, can you just share with the members the position of the Secretary for the Environment? Speaker is not coming through. You said we shouldn't be yelling that position, but I put up my hand for such a long time, but you didn't let me speak. Then how can you expect people to go by the rules? Okay, just go ahead and speak. My question, in my 3-minute speech just then, I raised the same points as the other members. We need to know whether we have rooms available for meetings this weekend. And then you should address that point and move on to talk about whether you have members here to preside over a meeting. If the chair is not here, we turn to the vice chairperson. And then if that's not failing that, we talk to the most senior member. We should address that point. It's not about your preferences. It's about what the quorum, whether we can do the meeting. We don't have to vote on whether to do additional meetings. About whether we are doing additional meetings, this is something for me to decide. Chair, are you saying that no matter what we propose, even if we can make it, the officials can make it, and you're not going to do the meeting? Is that what you're trying to say, Chair? It's your word for that, Chair. I looked at this possibility before, and my decision is that we don't have enough time. So put this on record. The Chair decided not to hold additional meetings. I heard you. The Chair decided not to hold additional meetings. Vice Chair. think the chair and the clerk should let the public know, and they should make this clear to the public. It's not just about whether we have the time, it's also about whether the additional meetings will be meaningful. There may be many committee stage amendments involved. Every time the government officials will have to look at these proposals. They can't just pause in the middle of a meeting and go back and do the checking. All the clerks at these committee meetings, they also need to take days. They also have to have the holidays. If we overexhaust them, then that's just not realistic. Whether we're doing a meeting on a certain day, we'll have to look at whether that also works for other bills committee meetings. This is just certain members trying to pick on a certain point and trying to project an image that they're very hardworking, and that's bad for the community as a whole. Mr. Steven HO, I made this point beforehand. I have looked at a variety of factors before including the way forward as our item in our agenda, and they have already covered all the factors that you just brought up. We're not here trying to please what certain members are trying to achieve. I've looked at all the factors before finalizing the agenda. That's within the power and also the responsibility for me as a chairman. I have already addressed that point. Now our time's up. I hope we can just wrap up this item. Clerk, please read out the position of the government so that everyone's clear on this point. By way of background, we checked with the government about the way forward of this Bills Committee, including what's the position on the possible discontinuation of scrutiny of this Bills Committee. Recently, on the 20th of June, the Secretary for Environment attended a radio show. I can't speak for the government at this point, but there's this reference here. The administration will try to work with the Bills Committee as much as possible, but looking at the way forward, if there is no way to pass this bill before the prorogation of the Legislative Council, the government will proceed with waste reduction efforts in Hong Kong. For further details, members can check out the relevant press release. The clerk has read out the position of the government on this matter. What are you trying to... Mr. Ted Ho, please just don't speak as you like in your position. I want the clerk to address my point. This is a point of order. Just then the clerk said the government is willing to work with this Bills Committee. I want to know what's stopping us from holding additional meetings. So a point on the venue for meeting for this Saturday or Sunday. I've made it clear I've decided not to hold additional meetings. So irrespective of whether you have the venue. For this item, I hope we can make a decision on this. Speaker's not using microphone. What's your point of order? Chair, you said that you have decided not to hold a meeting. Why are we putting this to a vote? I said I'm not holding additional meetings on this Saturday or Sunday. Are we going to hold additional meetings in the near future? We will talk about it in the future. But you said you're not going to hold additional meetings. I hope we can make up our minds about this. I will put this item to a vote as to whether this Bills Committee agree to discontinue the scrutiny of this bill and report the discontinuation of scrutiny to the House Committee. Want to see what your views are on this matter, I will invite you to let me know your views. So you can vote, you can say whether you're for or against simple majority. I'll read it again. This Bills Committee agrees to discontinue the scrutiny of the bills and report to the House Committee regarding the decision to discontinue scrutiny. Those for, please put up your hands. Please ring the bell for 5 minutes. Clerk, please. Has anyone claimed a division? Mr. Kwok Wai-kwan request a division. Claim the division. Let me read out Mr. Peter Shiu, Tommy Chang, Vincent Chang, Ronick Chen, Stephen Ho, Kwok Wai-kwan, and the chair, that's me. Those against discontinuation, put up your hand. Tony Tse, Eddie Chu, Jeremy Tam, Ted Hui. Seven for, 4 against. So this item is passed. The Bills Committee has decided to discontinue the scrutiny of this bill. I will report the discontinuation to the House Committee. Next item, any other business. Mr. Kwok Wai-kwan. Chair, we voted on this matter and we decided to discontinue the scrutiny since we just don't have the time. I want to raise 2 points. First, what is this filibustering about? About the teaching materials for primary, secondary schools, we couldn't elect a chair at that committee. That's filibustering. And second point, about the heat not burn cigarette, we tried to set up additional meetings, but then Mr. Jeremy Tam was against additional meetings for that Bills Committee. That's the Civic Party. At that committee, 3 out of 4 members from the Civic Party didn't make it to the meeting. And second, even if we go ahead with the Bills Committee, there will be filibustering at the council meeting. We'll have people keep requesting name counting. This is a show publicity stunt put on by the opposition camp. They requested name counting. This is what those people who are for burning together are doing. They're trying to crack down on my freedom of speech. Ted Hui, are you trying to stop me from speaking? Are you trying to stop me from speaking, Chair? Ted Hui, can you just stop? The ways we have to deal with is the kind of ways of trying to speak without having the microphone turned on. Any last item, any other business? No, it will be. The meeting's concluded. Thank you.